Jesus is famous for telling parables, so it's not surprising that he told one of his stories during the last week of his life. Now, what might be surprising to you is that in this parable, Jesus borrowed imagery from the most famous parable in the Old Testament. There are not many parables in the Jewish scriptures, but Isaiah's story of a man who planted a vineyard is by far the most well-known. In Isaiah's story, the vineyard owner chose fertile ground, he cleared it of stones, built a watchtower, and then planted the very best vines. It's obvious the vineyard owner expected grapes as a result of his investment because he had also installed a wine press. The people listening to Jesus at the Temple Mount would have easily pictured such a setting. Vineyards are commonplace across Israel. In Isaiah's parable, God is the vineyard owner and Israel is the vineyard. Isaiah spells that out. We don't have to guess about the symbolism. Because of Israel's disobedience, God took away the hedge, then he took away the wall that had all once protected the vineyard, and then God withheld the rain. Soon what had been a beautiful vineyard turned into a wasteland of briars and thorns. Now here's the point of bringing all this up. Anytime Jesus spoke of a vineyard, people in his audience immediately flashed back to Isaiah's story of a vineyard. They knew this story. They knew what it meant. In fact, to make sure people didn't miss the connection, Jesus began his parable with the same language Isaiah had used. A man planted a vineyard. He put a wall around it. He dug a pit for a winepress. He built a watchtower. In the story Jesus told, the focus moves to the vineyard owner sending representatives to the tenants who were working that vineyard. The vineyard owner wanted to collect the fruit that was rightfully his. The owner had made all the initial investments. The owner had done all the initial work. Now the owner expects fruit. He expects his tenants to do what good stewards do. But in the parable Jesus told, the tenants beat, shamed, and killed the people God sent to them. Many prophets had sounded the alarm for Israel and Judah in centuries past, and though they all spoke for God, most of their warnings had been ignored. Some of the prophets had been badly mistreated. Some of them had been killed. Did you know that included Isaiah, the first preacher to tell a vineyard parable? Jewish writings say that King Manasseh of Judah executed the great prophet. He killed Isaiah. In more recent days, John the Baptizer had just been killed. The people in Jerusalem considered John to have been a prophet, and Herod Antipas had ordered him executed. From a political standpoint, many of the religious leaders in Jerusalem were in bed with people like Herod Antipas. These Herodians had been the target of John's scathing rebukes. They weren't upset when John was silenced. Now Jesus is in their crosshairs. He had upset the status quo. He had openly rebuked the chief priest and his corrupt allies. Jesus understood the danger he was in. In his story, the vineyard owner, remember the owner represents God, he sent his son to the ungrateful tenants. The tenants discussed the situation and decided to do something so scandalous it would be shocking in any society. They would kill the son and claim his inheritance as their own. Whether or not that scores a direct hit for you, the message clearly hit home with its intended audience. The elders knew Jesus had spoken the parable against them. That's what Mark tells us. Now, many of the people hearing this story would have owned or tended olive trees and vineyards. They understood this story really well. They understood the work that was required. They understood the relationship of owners and tenants. But even if you've never walked among a vineyard, we all understand that if a group of thugs murders someone, they will not inherit the property of that person. Instead, they'll be punished severely. Well, it was just a story for now as Jesus told the parable, but by Friday night, the tenants of Jerusalem will have murdered him. God had sent the prophets. God sent John the Baptist. No one listened. So God sent his son, and they killed him. You know, when Jesus was telling this story, he also added a quotation from Psalm 118, a song people were singing a lot during this week. They sang it in a lot of religious celebrations. The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. The Lord has done this. It is marvelous in our eyes. Psalm 118, it's one of the 6 Hallel Psalms and probably the most famous of those 6. It was a fixture during the holidays. People had just sung it on Palm Sunday. Now listen, with one story and one reference to one song, Jesus set the stage for all that would happen on this last week of his life. In a few days after Friday's crucifixion and Sunday's resurrection, the followers of Jesus would see it all clearly. The parable and the song, they made perfect sense. Good Friday was a nightmare. And yet, just as Psalm 118 had been proclaiming, this was the day the Lord had made. And yes, they came to rejoice because of the cross, and they were glad in it. The stone the builders rejected was Jesus. But the cross did not put an end to his movement. No, it made Jesus the chief cornerstone of that movement, and that movement is still changing the world today.